All right, we are live. Hello, my friends. Welcome to part two of the rise of session takeovers. Today is a continuation of the last webinar. This is a part of a series of webinars about session takeovers and kind of just like credential marketplaces and cookie marketplaces in general. We're going to be visiting some new topics on this one specifically. Like we're going to focus. Last time we focused more on session takeovers and exposures of more corporate leaning assets. Think like SSO platforms, code hosting platforms, things like that. And today we will talk a little bit about SaaS platforms, but we'll also talk about the more popular marketplaces that exist. And these are for stolen accounts that concern more retail, e-commerce, end user platforms. These are the kinds of things that are very, very easy for threat actors to monetize. And as a result, are a big part of Steeler marketplace advertising and business. So first, I want to start by revisiting, just to get people caught up. While there's a lot of re-attendees from part one, if you're here from part one, thank you so much. But there's a new crop of people too, who I'm excited to catch you up on what we did in part one very quickly. So the agenda for today: what are cookies? This is a revisiting of last time. Same with intro to info stealers. Everything after that should be mostly new. We're going to do account marketplaces and their little underground economies, the rise in popularity of stolen sessions and stolen credentials. And then we're actually going to live demo the ASTP solution that Flare has, which is targeted specifically at stolen sessions and stolen creds. I'm going to do a live demo of the APIs that this, which are a big part of what this includes, and it should be cool. So quickly, session introduction. You will broadly see in the industry, the terms I'm using here are often used interchangeably. They are slightly different things, but just for your awareness, a session is generally referred to as the state of a user, like the login to log out period. A cookie is an actual, it's a storage mechanism that the browser uses to actually store data usually about the session, about the user, about the user's device. These can be something as simple as, does this user have dark mode or light mode enabled? And if you looked at the cookie, it'd be called like dark dash mode dash setting. 0 means off, 1 means on, and that would be it. The cookie would have either 0 or 1. Or it can be something as complicated as a session token. And a session token is a unique ID the session uses to authenticate the user when they relog in. So a session token is commonly referred to as a type of cookie. And you can basically imagine a session token as the reason, like when you close out of Facebook or Netflix or YouTube or most platforms, and you come back 3 weeks later, you type in the same URL and you're logged into your account. The reason you didn't have to re-authenticate is because a session token is stored on your device. The browser is storing it as a cookie. And when you authenticate to the service, when you reach out, you provide the session token or it requests it. And it checks the part of this value will be the expiration date of your session. So some platforms, very popular e-commerce, very popular social media, they'll have super long session times. So you might not have to re-authenticate for like 6 months or a year. So every time you open your laptop or log into it on whatever device, it's going to open up. It's not going to require you to re-authenticate. That's because the session token has not yet expired. So every time you visit the site, it's going to check and see, who's the user who's logged in? That'll be a unique value in the token. And what's the expiration date? So am I still allowed to authenticate them, or have they crossed that point and it's time to re-ask? So the reason we are interested in talking about sessions and the reason we monitor them is primarily because of InfoStealer malware. And I'll do a quick run through of this because we talked about this in more depth in part one. But basically, cookies and stolen credentials mostly come from these places. These are Stealer log marketplaces. These people are not necessarily malware developers writing InfoStealer malware. They are leasing InfoStealer malware as an affiliate. So think of how ransomware affiliates join a ransomware program and they get a cut. In this affiliate program, you pay for access to the malware. They'll give you a portable executable that you can customize with all your own, do you want it to only be finding streaming accounts? Do you want it to be looking for crypto wallets? Do you want it to be looking for whatever on the victim machine? And then you control just what you're in charge of is spreading the malware. And then you get access to all of the victims' machines, their credentials, their cookies, their whatever that you compromised. So what we're seeing here with Joker Logs and Daisy Cloud and Art House Cloud Logs, these are marketplaces. These are affiliates who've joined different Stealer programs, maybe Redline, maybe Meta. I mean, these are gone now, but the many Stealers that have existed and the many Stealers who have cropped up, these people join those programs, use that malware. They harvest tons and tons and tons of credentials, sometimes tens of thousands per day or tens or hundreds of thousands per week, and they sell them in bulk in these resale programs. So these are not necessarily super technical, competent actors. These are people using existing programs and reselling data that they've harvested. Now, when an info stealer lands on a device, it steals all of the things that you'll see listed here. It steals logins, the logins that have been saved to a browser. It steals cookies that are used to authenticate active sessions that can be used to take over existing sessions. It'll take a screenshot of the device. It will grab information about the device using the common recon commands, the who am I, system info, host name, all that stuff. It'll grab configurations for browser extensions. So if you're using a common example we've shown off before is like if you're using a TOTP browser extension, it'll grab the config for that so that they can respin up and take over your method of multi-factor without having to SIM swap or do anything too interesting. Among other things, it'll harvest Steam keys, Telegram tokens, all kinds of stuff from the file system, and it will grab files. So it'll grab files from documents, downloads, desktop, and all the things I just said are customizable by the user of the malware usually. So they can say, do I want to harvest cookies? Do I want to grab files? Do I want to grab browser extensions or look for crypto wallets? Usually the goal of the threat actor, the affiliate, will determine exactly what they do. And yeah, KeyPass database and its extension with master key, that we've seen many times. KeyPass database stored on the local file system can absolutely be picked up by these info stealers. Again, seen it many times. And then if you stored your master key in your KeyPass browser extension, or you stored your master key in like your Google password manager for the browser, then you've basically leaked the entire KeyPass database. It will be a few clicks and a copy paste for the person to take over your actual password vault. So there's a high risk there. And the distribution works in 3 ways. So there's sample channels. This is where groups are basically advertising and posting free samples from all of the various affiliate programs, trying to get you to join theirs. There's archive channels that will post a daily upload, usually daily, sometimes weekly, upload of machines that they've compromised. Typically, this is a big zip that contains tens of thousands of compromised hosts. And then they'll also post a ULP. And a ULP is a URL, login, and password. So this is like a CSV or a text file or a JSON file that is just the isolated username and password credentials that were present on the devices. So instead of going through these big zip archives and poking around and trying to find the passwords for each device and trying to see what's still active, if you go straight to the ULP, then you've got what you need without having to scroll through all the devices. You've just got the credentials. You can control F for Netflix and then bulk sell all the Netflix accounts that you harvested from those channels. And then the last one is live channels. And live channels use Telegram as the exfiltration point. So once a device has been infected, once all of the things have been stolen, it makes a little zip archive of the host's stolen data on the host and posts that directly to Telegram using, I think, the upload file Telegram API. So this is basically a live feed of victims of this malware. And again, instead of sending it back to their panel where they'll then unpack all of the devices, manually zip them up and post them for the group, this will be just a live feed of every single compromised device immediately is posted to the Telegram channel. Now, the most common infection vectors, I got this question a lot last time, so I added this into the recap. The most common is Google Ads. It's kind of tied for first, I think. This is an example. This is from a Stealer log, by the way. These are both real screenshots from real Stealer logs. In this example, the person searched Java, and the first result was app Java download at go.java-gapp.space. This was an info stealer that created a sponsored ad as Java, pretending to be Java, and successfully got many, many victims to download it during the time that it was alive. The second most common is YouTube. Again, this is a real, if you go to this YouTube video, you can find this Stealer sample in the description. This is someone looking at a video for a free raider tool for Discord. This is to like flood a Discord channel with bots. If you check this out, if you download that sample and double click it, the Vanish Raider from wherever they have it downloaded, I think this was a sample posted to GitHub. If you execute it, it's a stealer. So these are, like I said, the stealers take screenshots. So what we're looking at here are screenshots of the victim at the time of infection. So this is the person having downloaded Vanish Raider. It says, oops, it's not working. That's because it's actually an info stealer. The Java one was very similar. Also, hey, Cyber Research, good morning. Thanks for coming. So I could walk through stealer log structure, but I'd rather show you. So I'll click through this real fast. Basically, here's your daily zip file posted to the Telegram, the Stealer Telegram group. You've got your zip. Each zip in the larger zip, each nested zip is an infected device, and each infected device comes with all of the information stolen from that device. So let's take a look at what that looks like. This is a fake Stealer log that I created. If we click into, like, each one would be a unique device. This is a fake one I created to mimic what they actually look like. I used a real one to create this. The user information.txt file, this is what I talked about that has all of those, recon commands that would run on the device, looking for what AV is installed, which, by the way, we've seen pretty much every AV vendor present in this list. So, a modern stealer, they're constantly working on making sure they're bypassing all the latest and greatest, or even better, they're just asking you in the install instructions to please disable antivirus, which is very common. And a lot of the times in those screenshots, you'll see someone either turning it back on or in the process of turning it off while the stealer is running. It'll show you available keyboard layouts. That's for the device fingerprint that we'll talk more about when we actually take over some cookies from this stealer log. Process list, this will show you running processes. Sometimes it'll show you services also on the device. And then what most people out here looking at stealer logs, most cyber criminals are looking for is this file here, passwords.txt. And this is going to show you all of the URLs, usernames, and passwords that were stolen from the browser's password vaults. This will steal from any password vault of an installed browser, and it will grab the URL that this credential can authenticate to, the username, and the password. Now, a lot of times when we talk about like cybercrime forums or marketplaces, and you think of credential combos that show up, you think of databases like the Adobe database leak. So all the usernames and passwords are in there. This is very different from that, and orders of magnitude more specific, and for cyber criminals, significantly higher integrity. Where if you're getting to these stealer logs and you're a cyber criminal within hours of infection, or days of infection, these are most likely all going to still be active creds unless the user has rotated them. And you can access most of their accounts and recreate their device footprint, or take over the cookies. So if we look in the cookie files, we've got cookies taken from the default browsers. If we open this, we're going to see, kind of a chaotic and large file of all kinds of cookies here. The name, the ID, or the actual value, the expiration date, all stored in this Netscape format. And there's a couple other things. There's a screenshot of the device. There's an advertisement for where this came from. Best Logs is not a real channel, but this is what they usually look like. I'll link to the Telegram for the group. And then File Grabber will grab files off the device. So this is taking the desktop of the file. This is, some notes they took. This is a secrets.zip. This was their password archive. And if I go and look in the passwords file, I can find the password for that archive and open it right up. Another interesting thing is autofills. So autofills will be like the things that you fill in that you ask the browser to save. So for a lot of users, this is going to be employment information, physical addresses, credit card numbers, and sometimes you'll see, depending on what you've customized the stealer to do, you'll see a file here called CCs or credit cards or something like that, .txt, and it'll be all of the isolated credit card numbers. Also, I see some new joiners. Nadia, hello. Mikhail, hello. Mo, are we protected if we use a password manager? or will that leak session tokens without credential leaks? So using a password manager, I think, is very important. I generally tend to lean towards cloud-based password managers, so that if your device is compromised, your vault is not compromised, and not storing your master key in any password vaults that belong to a browser. Because then your master password is taken. And yeah, XY, great point. Sessions are not stored in password managers, only the credential pairs. So leaked session token, if your password manager is compromised, active sessions are not necessarily impacted by that. But if your password manager was compromised because your device was hit by a stealer, both are dramatically impacted. That said, if there is an active session to a cloud-based password manager, usually they have very quick expiration turnaround. So not a huge problem, but it certainly can happen if you customize your sessions to be super long. A device gets posted in that live channel, someone picks it up right away and takes over your session in the password manager. Then there's many routes to success for cyber criminals in that way. Now, I want to show you what it looks like to take over a session. I showed this in the last webinar, so this is a good time to refill your coffee if you were there for the last one. But if you're new, this should be fun. So what we're looking at here is Go Login. And Go Login is an anti-detect browser, a legitimate tool, by the way, used by marketing teams and ad teams to test things or clear out browser data to run campaigns, ad campaigns. And cyber criminals love these things because they can customize browser profiles to be very, very specific to the infected device that they compromised. And I'll show you how they do that. So this is a device that I have not customized at all. No cookie example. What I can do here in the settings is specify when this browser starts connecting to things, what do I want it to look like to the web server it's reaching out to? What's the IP I want it to use? What's the geolocation? What browser do I want it to be pretending to be? What hardware do I want it to be running? And if I customize or if I run this, it'll open up a little browser run by Go Login here. And I will access, I'm using Temu as an example. Again, I don't think anyone from Temu registered for the webinar. So hopefully no one will be upset by it. It's a fake account I made for the demo. So I could have picked any platform and this would have worked on it pretty much. And you'll notice here on Temu, I am not logged into an account. It's asking me to sign in. And in fact, it's saying here, be wary of messages claiming delivery issues. There's a privacy notice saying, please don't fall for scams. Now let's go, let's close out this and let's create a new device. I have some takeover examples here. Let's just call it takeover example 4. We will let it use my existing proxy, which again, in my proxy as the cyber criminal here, I am using the IP of the device I infected, which is listed here in the user information file. And I'm leasing an IP as close as I can to this physical location so that the authentication system of the web server I'm reaching out to thinks I just went to a coffee shop down the street, right? I'm still in the same general area, the same county or state or city or country. And it doesn't need to worry too much about what I did. I didn't move across the world for this session. Available keyboard layouts and all kinds of things that will be a part of the fingerprint of the device when I reach out to the web server. The hardware profile I'm running. So let's go in here and customize some things about my session to make sure it looks like the user. So I'm already connected in the same region as them. Let's go to geolocation, no problem. I'll let it fill in based on my IP, which I've already leased near the user. This was Chrome. I saw it a couple other places in the Stealer log, so I'll leave it as the latest Chrome. Screen resolution, the screen resolution here, 1440 by 1080. So let's make sure the screen resolution matches. These are all things that can't, depending on how the app works, could be part of the device's fingerprint. So I don't want to raise any red flags by looking different. 1440 by 1080. Language packs, we will do Swiss, German, and the US. So let's go ahead and edit these. So we've got English US already in there and English EN. We will do German as well. German DE and German Switzerland. And we will save those. RAM, CPU threads, that looks fine. 8 gigs of RAM. Don't really need to change CPU threads. That's not as common. Fonts, don't need to worry about this. Everything else should be fine here. And now let's go to cookies. So I'm going to go back to that Steeler log, grab that cookie file, and drag and drop it right here into my anti-detect browser. I'm going to remove this little stuff up top, click import. So now all of these cookies are a part of a device profile that looks like it's reporting in, again, from basically the same device, from a slightly different IP. The hardware profile is the same. The cookies are the same. Everything should look pretty much the same to the service I'm connecting to. And now let's try and actually run this new browser that I've made to look like my victim device. Once it loads up here, I will navigate to temu.com. And it doesn't. Did I import the cookies incorrectly? Let's run this one. Oh, okay. Am I authenticated? Maybe not. You might have to watch the last demo video where I did this, or I could just fix it now. No, that's not worth the time. I did this on the last one. We will just call that lost to the demo gods. But there are still cool things we'll show off later on. In part one, the takeover works correctly. In part two, it doesn't. We were not as successful. Let's go back to the deck. But if that had worked, I would be logged in as the user. And this is going to be recorded, so I can't show you, but we have many videos of this working for threat actors. And if there's time at the end of the presentation, I'll redo it again by pulling the cookies out of the browser during the Q&A. I left old cookies in there from the last session, so they are probably expired. So let's talk about the individual account marketplaces where these sessions are typically posted. Or are typically targeting. So if we look in, and most of these are going to be in Telegram, by the way, this is a listing for accounts mostly targeting video game and streaming services. The interesting thing to note here is these are, probably in the Steeler ecosystem, these are by orders of magnitude the most common things people are looking for, not always for resale, but usually for personal use. So the people joining these channels just want, burner accounts for Rockstar Games to use cheats and then hop off. Or use a Netflix account one time and then ditch it because it's going to be flagged as taken over. So these are, low-level account takeovers for social media apps, for gaming platforms to cheat, and for streaming services are by orders of magnitude the most popular. This person is giving away several things, by the way. They're giving away not only accounts for sale, but also cookies isolated. So not just the, maybe they don't have accounts from that device. Maybe the person didn't use their browser password manager, but they do have cookies because the person was logged into things. So the cookie takeovers will work better than the account takeovers, and usually be still, be able to bypass two-factor that might be set up on those accounts. So if the accounts fail because two-factor is set up, a stolen session will walk right by that. Now, entertainment and streaming platforms are also just as popular, not just for creds, but also through cookies. So we have here Netflix cookies and Netflix accounts, again, listed separate. They've also got all kinds of things here. HBO Max, Netflix, Disney Plus. But the cookies and accounts listed separately as little bonuses down here are because, again, many people don't use their browser-based password managers, but do authenticate to things. And when you authenticate to something, a cookie is created. So whether you you have no choice of whether a cookie is stored. You have a choice whether or not to save a credential pair to your browser password manager. But in the other direction, you don't have a choice. SaaS platforms are also overwhelmingly common. This is kind of where we start to step up into the more sophisticated actor space. These are people usually using cloud infrastructure for to host malware for slightly or reasonably more sophisticated campaigns, or are constantly rotating through infrastructure because they're burning it. They're taking over accounts. they're running a malware campaign, a spam campaign, a something campaign, and then they're moving on immediately once the cloud environment burned. And as you can see by this list, no one is really no one is isolated from these account takeovers. Everyone seems to love them. Every platform it's capable in, and threat actors adore them. For financial services, I kind of am mixing like fintech and traditional banking here, but both are extremely popular, but in slightly different ways. So what we're looking at here, these are usually, three products of Stealer Logs. This is mail access accounts. So this person took people's emails, usually from Stealers, sometimes from phishing kits, logged into them, and saw what accounts passwords they could reset through the email. Now, they're not actually doing it. They're selling the email address that you can use to then, compromise these people's accounts that maybe they didn't store in the password manager. But if you take over the session for their email address, you can get into all of their, subsequent services. SquareUp, ADP, PayPal, Venmo, Klarna, Kraken, Stake, Stripe. Stake is interesting. We're covering some different territory with gambling. And then also in financial services, this is another thing where people will sell fraud channels, will sell individual victims with as much information as they can about them. These are people who want to find bank accounts that have money in them, but aren't interested or aren't capable of actually moving the funds. So they want to find active accounts, get into them as much as they can, and then sell them off. So this person is selling a Wells Fargo account that has access to do wires, Zelle, and bill pay, who it's owned by, the state they live in, and what they use to get access to it. So this is Gmail specifically. And then what they have available. So login and password, Octo, which is an anti-detect browser, similar to the one I just unsuccessfully showed off. And then full details with cookies so that you can also take over the cookies. The Octo transfer, by the way, is like that's all of it. That's them saying they'll give you the configuration of the device with cookies and with the login and password so that you can take it over easily. And then this is chatter from a threat actor specifically asking for bank logs with cookies. Now, the interesting thing here, this is HSBC, a much larger storied financial institution, much more mature than many other industries in general. But this person clearly has a way to make use of cookies, even though the sessions are very, very short-lived. So this person is going to hand this over at a time when the session is still active. They're going to do a lot of coordinating with you as a cyber criminal. On this one, the person is asking for, and this is a pretty credible threat actor that we track, is asking for logs with cookies, kind of in a channel of his friends. So a question from Edward: can these stealers grab passkeys that are stored in Google accounts? So if you're referring to anything stored in the Google browser-based password manager, yes, it can steal anything. It will the Google Chrome did implement device-based session cookies, but threat actors were very quickly able to get by this. It's kind of a complicated process. It's if I remember correctly, they spin up a sub-process of Chrome and then inject into that sub-process, so they don't do it in the parent Chrome. And then they hop over Chrome's dedicated encrypted channel to pull cookies and passwords and grab them that way. The last category to talk about, and another massive target, usually due to their ease of access, is retail and e-commerce, and also their ease of fraud. Threat actors love using these to actually buy physical goods and send them somewhere for more brick and mortar fraud operations. So this is actually the same mail accounts post as last time. I picked it out because it's kind of funny how they're selling so many different categories of things in one. Grubhub, GameStop, Target, Starbucks, Amazon, Nordstrom, Poshmark, Etsy, Foot Locker, Pizza Hut, Walmart, all mixed in with Microsoft, ADP, PayPal, Kraken, Stake. They're covering all the bases. Nadia said in the comments, do not store passwords in any browser. Absolutely do not. I agree wholeheartedly. Do not use your browser-based password managers if you can avoid it. Now, free cookies. This is kind of an interesting and fun note that for advertising these credential and paid channels for creds, cookies, or full Stealer Logs, a lot of people will give away cookies for free. again, due to how easy they are to take over. It's a drag and drop typically, and clicking run in order to take over the session. So lots of places giving away free cookies. This person advertising joining their Telegram channel for free cookies. This person posting a daily update of new fresh free cookies every day as promotion for you to join their other channels. This is Google and Outlook. This is Steam, TikTok, Instagram. What they're giving away all depends on who their victims were recently. Now, this is an interesting note, is that we've seen a handful of times ransomware affiliate groups form exclusive relationships with Stealer authors or with, well, more likely initial access brokers. And initial access brokers, based on not only conversations we saw in this case, but in general, shop at Stealer log marketplaces to find access. They'll look for VDI logins. They will look for, legitimate remote access tool logins that, MSSPs or MSPs will use. They will look for hosts that have been infected that have exposed RDP. So they're looking for host access, but they're using Stealer logs to get there, which is a very common and very easy place for IABs to shop in. So this is an example of a conversation on XSS that leaked where Lockbit is forming an exclusive relationship for bulk access with an IAB. What their goal is here is right of first refusal. So they get to distribute the stolen credentials, the stolen access to their affiliates, and they get to give their best ones to their best affiliates who they know can operate a successful ransomware campaign, and then they'll give the lower hanging fruit or the worst stuff to their affiliates who still have to prove themselves or who are still learning. And based on our conversation, or based on our interpretation of this specific instance, the IAB almost definitely took credentials from Stealer logs. Now, just looking at volume in the retail and e-commerce context, there are lots of credentials. This is a monthly leak. There are lots of credentials, but there are even more sessions. This to underline the point that not as many people use their browser-based password managers, though many do, as have cookies, because a cookie is not really negotiable for a web service to operate. So looking at massive retail and e-commerce offerings, Walmart, Temu, Target, Etsy, we're looking at in the thousands to lower tens of thousands of leaked credentials in the last month. So this is January 25. And then leaked sessions, the volumes are looking significantly higher. Temu is probably the most wild. These are 290. By the way, what I'm talking about here are unique infected devices. So this is 290,000 devices that we picked up in January that had cookies for Temu.com and Target and Etsy. So these are unique devices, not unique logins necessarily. So it's lots of devices. In the web app user world, so these are popular. I tried to cover a lot of bases here: social media, streaming, Twitch, which is kind of a mix of both. We have lots and the quantity of sessions when you look at social media start to get a lot larger. Leaked credentials specifically, we're looking at like 180K for Twitch, 300 for Netflix, almost 600,000 for Facebook, 350,000 for Instagram. And then when we get into sessions, one interesting anomaly, I couldn't tell you why these things happen, is Netflix sessions are lower than leaked credentials. So less devices had active cookies than had saved credentials. Many reasons for this. The person could be logged into Netflix on a smart TV and not the device in question. But usually for leaked credentials and leaked sessions, we see the session count being much higher, which for Twitch, it's 230. For Facebook, that's 653 unique devices. And for Instagram, over 100,000 more active sessions than there are stored credentials on devices. Now, talking a little bit, this is revisiting last time, the rise in popularity. The reason people like cookies, the reason threat actors like cookies, is that sessions can bypass multi-factor auth. Sessions are usually a drag and drop into anti-detect browsers, making them stupid simple to take over. And bypassing multi-factor is a huge priority for someone who's very quickly, scamming or committing fraud and trying to get into as many things as possible. The multi-factor systems will be session bound. So as long as the person has multi-factor authenticated and that session is still active, then things will work. And how they use cookies, more so than using anti-detect browsers like I did, is they will use checkers. So checkers will allow them to upload, groups of cookie files or put cookie files in a directory or point to a directory of stolen device logs, and it'll automatically go through and find cookie files. And these checkers, BL Tools being a prominent example, will go through all of those stolen cookies and validate them on your behalf. So instead of you having to go into a anti-detect browser, recreate the device, and do it all by hand, these checkers will do all of that work for you and tell you how many not expired devices they found. Now, this is a funny example because this screenshot is from a stealer. There was an infected version of BL Tools being distributed by threat actors to other threat actors. So we were seeing, this is one of the larger campaigns we saw of bad guys infecting themselves with stealers and exposing all of their malicious infrastructure that they'd saved to their device and their browsers to the world, because many of these channels, many of these logs have found their way into the public, over time. So an interesting example, and usually you have to pay for access to these tools, and you get them by proxy of being a member of a Stealer channel. So you join a prominent Stealer channel, they will sell you a pre-configured version of BL Tools or some other checker or proxy tool, and it'll let you very quickly, it'll be built to parse their cookie files as they land. So all you have to do is download their Stealer logs, and the cookie checker pointed at the directory you're downloading to, and the cookie checker will go do its work and tell you what cookies are still valid and you can take over. Now, moving on from checkers, the volume of leaked sessions we pick up by device is quite substantial. We consume over 1.5 million infected devices per week across all of these Stealer log marketplaces and channels we collect from. We estimate 7 million. That's kind of a dated figure. It's probably higher now, but I don't want to say until I've run the numbers. 7 million of these contain corporate credentials. So that is the portal.azure, amazon.aws, Okta, Ping, Canva, Paychex, Bamboo HR. These are known corporate services that are very high value to threat actors and high impact to businesses for being taken over. This is where a lot of those campaigns you saw from the last year, Ticketmaster, AT&T, Santander Bank, by the way, all a part of that campaign that was targeting Snowflake tenants. All of those use Stealer logs. The latest PowerSchool hack is said to have used Stealer logs. If you kind of look under the hood at many of the latest breaches, when something stolen gets posted to a major cybercrime forum, you look under the hood at the article, you read the post mortem from the company who was impacted, and Stealer logs are very often a culprit, or they'll be referred to as credentials sold on the dark web. Usually what that means is from InfoStealer marketplaces. And we have over 100 million total infected devices indexed in our data set at this time. And if you want to extrapolate sessions and credentials embedded within, it's to the tune of many, many billions. Each device will have tens, hundreds, or thousands of both credentials and sessions stored on them. So what we've developed at Flare that I will demo, hopefully the demo gods will bless this one, is ASTP. And ASTP is Account and Session Takeover Prevention. This is a primarily API-based product, though we do offer access to Flare proper with it. You get, but it's for the ability to investigate credential incidents. It's not really for the other use cases that Flare facilitates. This is mostly for investigating credential leakage with fraud or ATO prevention in mind. And what we offer with this is access to these credential databases and marketplaces, not only from the places we typically see them, like Stealer log marketplaces and these ULP channels and cookie channels, but also all of the other breaches that we pull from. We index leaked data and breaches from all of the places that cyber criminals exchange them in. And we make them available to you over 2 API endpoints. That is our Leaked Credentials API, where you search by domain, and our Session Cookies API, where you also search by domain. This domain isn't going to give you, when you think of your average API that you search for leaked credentials in, you give it like a domain, and it will return to you all of the email addresses tied to that domain and their leaked passwords. This is the inverse of that, sort of, where if you give it a domain, it's going to find people who are able to log into that domain because the URL portion of their stored credential in the browser matches, or in a ULP, matches that domain. So we're not looking at corporate players here. We talked about that more on the last one. On this one, we're looking for people who can log into my service. And then we do the same thing with session cookies. So these are sessions that have leaked that are usable to access this service. You query this API and you sort of do what you want with that data. Now let's hop over for a quick demo. I'm going to test this one before we start looking at the code. Let's do example.com. Okay, great. This is working. And let's do cookies. Awesome. Okay. So what we're pulling down here is using, let's hop over to the Python script. We are using those two API points I referenced, those two API endpoints, to pull these things down. So the first thing we're doing is search credentials. And all I'm doing here is reaching out to our credential search API. My size limit is very large. I'm only doing 100 though. I could go significantly higher. And I'm searching by auth domain. So the auth domain is what's available with ASTP. And this specifically lets you search by the domain that this is used to authenticate to. And then I provide the FQDN of what I'm looking for. So I can be, when searching with credentials, for example, I just wrote a little argparse script in Python to do this. This is what the full entries look like. I added a little argument to just pull out what we care about here. In this example, identity name is going to be our username for this service, and hash is going to be our password. That's just what it's referred to on our backend, but I clean them up in the script, and I say, just show me the username and password. So this is the domain it's accessible to. Oh, sorry, that's cookies. Let's do credentials. This is cred. So this is just the username and password, and it's going by what I search. So in this example, I'm searching on example.com, and I'm asking it to just show me the username and password. While there's all that metadata I just showed you that's available, information about the leak, the date we imported it, the date the device was infected, all of this information that can be tied together for interesting investigations. But what you can also do is just say, give me the latest of leaked credentials for my service, and I'm going to automatically I'm going to validate against my auth service that these are still active. And if they are, I'm going to force password reset on next login or deauthorize sessions. But again, let's say, and for sake of example, most devices will have cookies. They won't all have credentials. So I can do the same thing here on credentials or on cookies. Looking in my file here, this is just me cleaning it up. In cookies, I'm pulling from our cookies search API. I'm providing my FQDN. And I am also offering a query based on name. There's all kinds of other things. Our API docs are public, by the way. There's all kinds of other things I can filter on here. Again, Winflare imported it, so I can check every 5 minutes for new leaked cookies so that I'm constantly keeping up with the devices that are being exposed to these marketplaces and the cookies that have been stolen and are available for download. And if we don't go by session name, which is an option, I can just pull down all of the cookies leaked for this domain. Scatterhult.com is a fake service we use for demos all the time. So this is showing me the domain, the UID as it lives in Flare, so I can go look at this full Stealer log if I'd like. And then the date we pulled it in, when the actual session expires, which we can do session token clean. This will show me, this will tell me if a credential is active or expired. I'm automatically doing that check in the script. And then I can also look at additional fields like the actual value, the UID, these are Flare specific things, the path of the cookie where it was stored on the device, and then the name. So let's say session referrer link, device ID. These are things I know my web service uses, but I don't care about them. They're not like, if these leak to the public, it doesn't mean anything. What means something is my auth cookie or my session token. And let's say I call that fittingly session token. If I query based on name, I will only see, and I provide session token to the query, I will only see cookies that match the name session token. So now I can take these unique values per session token and run these against my auth database, wherever sessions are stored, and determine if these are still active sessions. And I can also filter, as I do here. I can maybe only check active ones. If it's already expired, I say, who cares, move on. If their credential shows up in the credential thing because their device was compromised, then I will use that to also reset if the password is still active. If not, I don't need to put the user through the trouble. But if the cookie is still active, if the session token is still active and not expired, then this session can be taken over now. So I'm going to send this off to my auth system. I'm going to write another script to do this, or I'm going to ask Flare to build a native integration with whatever platform we use for auth. And I'm going to deauthorize these sessions and force password reset on next login. And I'm probably going to do a little investigation and make sure that this hasn't been taken over already. Now let's switch back over to the deck. So what you need on your end to make ASTP useful is a mechanism to verify a cookie's validity. So this is going to be a access to whatever the authorization system is you're using. Not only for cookies, but also if you're doing this for credentials, you need to have the same mechanism for credentials to test if a password is still active. You'll also need a mechanism to actually invalidate those sessions. Maybe you're running this in a audit only mode, and you're going to go do that part by hand, or you're going to reach out to your web app security team by hand. But if you have the permission to do so, and these sessions are leaked, you should absolutely revoke them immediately. The sessions are trivial to take over, and you should force reauthentication for the user, and probably also force a password reset. And potentially also an audit of their two-factor if they're using TOTP and that leaked in the browser extension leak that was pulled from using the stealer, then you're going to have to rethink how they're entering their two-factor details, because that's compromised as well. And then you'll also need an agreement to actually revoke those sessions. So this is an agreement with your web app security team. Maybe this is something in writing. Maybe this is something you check by the user and you offer them the session reset. But usually, for most people, this is just something that happens in the background. The sessions are reset. The user has to log in. Maybe they know why. Maybe they don't know why. Maybe the platform provides a notification that says, we found your credentials leaked online, or we found that your device was infected, and we've protected you by deauthorizing the session and prompting you for a new password. So it's designed to be done before the session can be taken over. So what a user would do with ASTP is integrate it into authentication workflows. So automatic revocation, these are things that you can do by hand, but at scale, when we're talking about thousands, tens of thousands, or hundreds of thousands of sessions and credentials leaked per month, this is something you will want to automate. And also automate any remediation actions that have to happen after, or like basic investigations that have to happen after for maybe anomalous activity that would have happened on the account during the time of the session, where the session may have been exposed. And then also alert your security teams. If you're on the SOC and your web app team is separate and you're providing these alerts to them, you'll probably want to set up an automation to do that. If you are the web app security team, then great, but there still might be other enterprise level security teams who'd want to be aware of leaked sessions and leaked credentials on these user accounts that might have impacted lateral movement into corporate resources. So the things that you should take away from not only the presentation, but from the service that we've designed around it, is that theft of accounts and sessions is a growing problem. Threat actors realize how easy it is to take over sessions. We see them asking very specifically for cookies instead of logins for things. I showed an example of that. And it's not necessarily a problem that's unique to any vertical. There are people who harvest and sell each individual, each vertical of industry that exists. There is probably someone that specializes in harvesting those sessions and those credentials and reselling those accounts. So there are definitely areas of the stolen account economy that are much less popular and that are much more popular, but no one is necessarily immune. If the credential leaked and the session leaked, there are people who are, automatically checking their validity. Proactive session monitoring and automated token checks are important for actually preventing the takeover from happening in the first place. So it is common to have anomaly detection tools on user activity after a session has been taken over to detect, behavior that is not typical from this user or not typical from any of our users. But this is kind of right of boom. The session's been taken over. Someone is in this account, and now we're looking for anomalies. Odds are where they shopped for that account is from one of these stolen device and session marketplaces with millions leaking per week. These are very, very common places and super, super easy places to find what threat actors need to get into accounts. So starting at the session revocation level is going to help a lot in preventing the ATO in the first place. And that brings us to our last point. Actually integrating this into your auth workflows is super, super powerful for especially large-scale web apps or web apps that may have hundreds or thousands of leaked sessions or credentials per month, where this volume by hand is simply untenable. But the impact of an account takeover is also simply too expensive or too problematic to ignore. So I will now open the floor for questions, comments, concerns, and in the background, I will try and get those sessions working again so I can show you what a session takeover looks like. YY said, how strong do you think is Apple's keychains and passwords? I mean, the password generation in Apple's keychain is good, but keychains are typically, just as vulnerable as any password manager to being accessed, and are not usually, most Mac-based stealers are capable of stealing everything from the device, up to and including stored password vaults, and usually they'll attempt the keychain. XY said 6 service, super useful. Thank you, very kind. Any other questions and comments? Yes, the presentation PowerPoint will be in the Discord. I'll also share in the Discord that script I wrote to pull down from these services, just so you can take a look. There's nothing in it. I don't have any API keys in it. I don't hard code anything, so it's safe to share. But you can also just check on our API docs, which are public, and show all of this. Of course. Thank you, Nadia, for attending. Thank you, Matt. Couldn't get into the Discord last time. Eunice, do you think you could check if or share a Discord link in here and see if it works? Does Flare have an? Yes, Flare does very specifically have what we call the Flare Academy, and the Flare Academy is where these trainings are listed and shared, and where we also provide all kinds of deep dive trainings. We've got one coming up on threat actor de-anonymization, de-anonymizing, and all kinds of stuff. Is ASTP different from the Entra ID integration? So yes, it is different. Entra ID credential validation will just be available to Flare customers. That is something that you just get. Is ASTP a separate module? Yes. So ASTP specifically is a separate offering that Flare has, catered specifically to mostly web applications who deal with large amounts of account and session leakage, where handling each individual stealer log by hand is simply too much. Billy, hey, nice to see you. Thanks for a great session. Of course, thanks for attending. Yes, Matt, we do have a product sheet for ASTP. There's a bunch of ways you can get that from us, but I'll have someone reach out. If you registered for the webinar, I will send you the details. Oh, of course. Okay. Oh, I'm sure we've shed a lot of the audience at this point because we wrapped, but I was successfully able to, I clicked on the wrong cookie file during my demo. I apologize deeply, but I was able to take over the session successfully. So now we are in a stolen Temu account on the VM. Maybe too little, too late, but if you hung around, now you see it. So if I click on what I did in this example, I copied the right cookie file, as you saw before how I did that, into the cookies section of my of my service, and I'll go back to the settings. I'll open the settings on the right tab, and I'll show you the cookies. You'll see here Temu cookies. There are 19 of them. I dragged and dropped the correct cookie file, which was this one in Stealer Log. I don't know where I took it from last time, or if I did, maybe I just clicked something incorrectly in Go Login. But when I clicked, run here, you'll notice the session is valid. So having taken over an account, I'm able to do anything. I'm able to access this security reminder. Please be wary of scam messages and links. I'm able to do anything that I'd like. I can buy things. I can change the address. I can try and enumerate the payment information. I can change the delivery address and actually order things. There's all kinds of fraud I can do when I have access to a more common retail or e-commerce service. Amateurs left. XY. That's funny. I did make it, Ricardo. Thank you. All right. Any other questions? Questions, comments, concerns? Again, I will share a bunch of these details in the Discord. And I will also share the script there. That's also where, like, when people ask for scripts, I always share them in there. So you can see I'm logged into again, this is a fake account. I did not actually take over someone's Temu account. This is a fake account with fake information in it. Now I could even log out here. I could change the password, or I could log out here, relaunch, and I would still be logged in if I re-import the cookies. Do you teach these topics? Yes, we do. So we don't have anything specifically on session takeover prevention. That's kind of what this webinar series was for. But that's against Temu's TOS. If I took over a real account, it certainly would be. We do teach these topics in the Flare Academy, and we talk about them in the Discord all the time. If you're looking for like defensive techniques, but we have a variety of training courses we're running. If you'd like us to cover cookies in more detail, that would be we'd be happy to do that. Yes, Jason, you're right. If you try and re-authenticate and you need a password to do so, like to change the password, for example, which many services will do, then you'll be stuck. You will need either access to the email as well, so that you can do it over email, or you'll need a stolen credential for that device to actually reset the password. But bad guys get creative all the time and have workarounds for like major retail platforms they target specifically. They will have many like unique workarounds that they'll usually sell access to, like a script to bypass whatever security measures are in place, or share advice on how to, like, now that you have access to the account, you call the help desk, or you pay someone to call the help desk, which they have all kinds of people offering that service. And now that you're in the account, you can talk more competently to the service desk of the company and have them change the registered email to yours, or if you've got access to the email as well, have them send a reset link. Great. Well, we are at time, folks. Thank you all for stopping by. I'm glad I was able to rescue the live demo, and unfortunately it was at the end, but we did successfully take over an account using a session. So thanks again for attending, and make sure to ask questions or follow up in the Flare Discord, and look forward to the trainings we have coming up, which are all free and you can sign up for on our website, or from links in the Discord directly. Thanks again, and I'll see you all on the next one.